Do you want to feel more confident when it comes to your financial life? Well, today's podcast, Jayne Ellegard and I want you to feel that way too. In fact, Jayne and I met in a fantastic women's business owners mastermind, a group of women getting together and empowering themselves to the next level in their businesses. And Jayne is just an amazing soul. She is starting her business and just wrote a phenomenal book on empowering women from their financial pictures and not using the industry jargon that we are famous for to be able to have people learn. She's breaking it down in really easy, approachable metrics for people to understand. Jayne developed the 6 pillars of financial empowerment, and today we unpack just a few of them, and I think we're gonna have to have her back for even more. And you can read her book or sign up for her courses to learn more about empowering yourself. But today, here's a sneak peek of a conversation with my dear friend, Jayne Ellegard. Jayne, thank you, and welcome to the Thrive Forward podcast. I am elated that you are here. I wish that we could be in person because this time last year we were, and it was an absolute blast. I love, you sent me the picture of the two of us at the restaurant with Yasna, and it kind of got me a little emotional and a little choked up because we were both, in this space of growing our fierce businesses. So thank you so much for gracing us with your level of intelligence and experience today. I'm grateful.
Oh my gosh, Shannon, thank you so much. I'm so excited to be here, and it's so fun to see you again.
I know we will see each other in person soon. I know we will.
Yes. We will.
So Jayne, you and I have such a great passion for education around the financial aspects of things and empowering, especially women, to understand wealth and finances and things that sometimes come across as almost if they're a foreign language. I know it did for me when I first started. I tell this story of when I first started in the industry, and I don't know if I've ever shared this with you. When I had my first job at a bank and I was a teller and I had no financial experience whatsoever, and they handed me the CD rate list. I thought the CDs were CDs you put into a Discman, not CDs that were also called certificates of deposit. I was very confused. And needless to say, now I use that as a benchmark that you can learn anything and that your brain is truly a sponge. How did you get to this space of just wanting and so impassioned about sharing that level of education with others?
It's years of having worked with clients and, seeing, having a husband and wife come in for a meeting and wanting, so badly for them to understand what it was I was saying. And so often seeing that the woman wasn't engaged as much as I was trying to pull her into the conversation. She was glazing over or shutting down, and I could just see it wasn't connecting with her. And then unfortunately, I would see later, the husband would potentially die, or there was an unexpected divorce, or, I would see these women thrown into these very scary situations because they didn't understand their finances. And I just kept feeling like somebody needs to do something about this. These women need to be educated. They need to learn the basics that nobody has ever taken the time to teach them. And I mean, this is such a male-dominated industry, and the terminology, everything about it is very masculine. And, it was an industry built by men for men. That's just the reality. It's not good, bad, or indifferent. It's just reality. And I just kept thinking, there must be a way to make the language more welcoming, more inviting to women so that they actually find it enjoyable. And so that was really what challenged me to start my own business and really start to educate as many women as I possibly could and make it fun and enjoyable.
And you do such a great job at making that approachable. to so many. I can't tell you how many times I've had that same experience where it's glazed over, or I spend most of the time, chit chatting about, like, they'll ask me about my kids and we'll talk about their kids or their grandkids, and we'll talk about those relationship aspects of things. And then when we get to more detailed concepts, now I try to make my sessions with my clients, I don't even call them meetings. Like, I try to change the vocabulary even around what we're doing. So I don't call them investment planning meetings, right? They're strategy sessions, so that we understand that at the core of what we're doing is truly around them and that family experience, or whatever those goals are for them, so that it isn't just, well, here's your rate of return and this is X, Y, and Z, and your alphas and your betas and all of the things that, we could go in immense amount of detail around, but honestly puts me a little bit to sleep too. So
Me too.
so you just wrote this absolutely awesome book that by the time this airs will be launching in 2 days. So the book releases on April 8th. Tell us a little bit about financial empowerment for women and why you wanted to create this book.
Oh, Shannon, I just want every woman, as many women as possible, to learn about their financial situation. And so anything I can do to take that further. And somebody just said to me the other day, "You've priced your book too cheap." And it's like, no, it's priced so that every woman can afford it. I truly want every woman to understand this and to get excited about it, because you can make such a difference, not only in your own life, but in people's lives, if you understand your financial situation. So it's just so valuable. And so I just really wanted to bring, I've been doing these group coaching sessions with women, which were so much fun before COVID hit.
Yeah.
And then I got shut down, but I could just see the transformation that took place in women's lives when they actually understood this. And I was working with women at all ages, at all wealth levels, and seeing that transformation, regardless of where they fell in that realm, was just amazing. And so I really wanted to get it out there to as many women as I possibly could. And so I really I created what I call the 6 pillars to financial empowerment. And the 6 pillars really take you through kind of every aspect of what you should understand about your finances. And it's fun. It really is fun, Shannon.
Well, you don't have to tell me. I know it is. And I know the 6 pillars and I love them. And I think that they align so much with what I do from a financial planning standpoint. Which I'm sure there was like some sort of strategic element in there a little bit around that. I wanted to touch on something that you said around, women at every wealth level. I think sometimes we think that once we get to a certain space of accumulated wealth or whatever it might be, that we have this automatic knowledge that switches on and that we know these things. What are some common things that you've seen with women, no matter where they are in their wealth space, that they're struggling with?
I think one of the things that it comes down to is money mindset. I think every woman struggles with how they feel about money and understanding how they feel about money. So the very first pillar that I take women through is about money values and beliefs, because I think going back and really kind of stepping back and thinking about what are the messages, the money messages that you heard growing up, and how are they impacting you today? Because they are. And yet we never take the time to actually stop and think about what those are. And I think that has been one of the most fun pillars, because when women are together and I ask them, I have this family tree exercise that I have them do. And so I ask them to draw themselves and then their parents and grandparents, children, grandchildren, and then their spouse off to the side. And I ask them to think about, what are those messages that were handed down through those generations to them? And then I ask them to share. So then we come together and ask them to share that. And it's so fun because they can't wait to share, right? I mean, it's like, when's it my turn? When's it my turn? and hearing the other women's stories and, hearing some of the similarities and some of the differences and being able to relate to what each woman is feeling, but stopping and actually thinking about that. Again, I think part of it is money is so taboo still. And so we're not talking about it. And so this is one of those things that, when you give women the opportunity to actually talk about it and share these stories for the first time, they can't wait. They're excited to share it. And it does open up something really new for them that they've maybe never even considered. I also ask them to then go home and share this exercise with a loved one. And they may discover that, there's a reason why there's a lot of friction around money in their household. And it's potentially because they both grew up hearing about money so differently, and they're approaching it so differently, and that's causing issues. And we all know that money is one of the number one reasons that couples fight and leading to divorce, with half of marriages ending in divorce. And so I feel like if they can start talking about this at a time when they're not in a fight about money, but can actually stop and talk about it and share their stories, I think it just really makes a big difference.
I could not agree more. Like when I sit down, I got asked this question in an interview that I did, or a session that I did with Lululemon, and someone asked, well, how do I start having these conversations around money with my partner? And he said, well, you first, you can't go into the strategy of expenses and net worth and, dreams and aspirations if you don't start with what were you taught? What were those experiences? And I break it down even more so than the relationships, but the conscious and subconscious. What is the culture that we have been raised around as well? Because, you can grow up in the same household, a female and male, and have very different messages that you're taught, but by the same parents, right?
Yeah.
And that one of my favorite books is, if you haven't read it, it's called Brave Not Perfect. Have you read that one?
No, I haven't.
So it's Brave Not Perfect by Rashmi Sanjani, and she is the founder and CEO of Girls Who Code, and she talks specifically about the difference in languages that we teach our kids about. And she talks about music and money and all kinds of different things. But I have noticed that we talk to our boys about investing and growing wealth and creating income, but we talk to our girls about saving and spending. Yep. All very important to talk about.
But the saving and spending is great, but you also need to learn how to invest, and women need to learn, because we're going to live longer. We're making less money. And so if we aren't investing our, the money that we are making and saving, it's really not going to do us as much good as it possibly could. I had a friend, we were having dinner one night, and she comes from a blended, she and her husband have kids, right? Blended family. And her daughter was going to be graduating from high school, and his son was going to be graduating from high school the same year. And she had gone out and bought her daughter this beautiful Tiffany bracelet. And she was so excited, and that was what her mom had given her when she graduated from high school. And so she was passing this down, and she said to her husband, so what are you going to do for, their son? And he said, oh, I'm going to open an investment account for him. Mm-hmm. And she was just like, and she's in the industry. She said, I was so mad at myself. I couldn't believe that I didn't do that for my age. She said, so when she graduates from college, she's getting an investment account.
Well, she could do it. She could do it now.
She could do it now.
Power of compounding.
Yeah, that's true. But I just think it is. It's so true. We think about it differently when it's our son versus our daughter. And yeah, UBS just came out with, they had a study that said, 49% of women defer to their spouses to make the financial decisions. And a big part of that is the entrenched roles. It's just really hard to get past that. And if you've grown up seeing your dad handle the money, and mom didn't, you tend to continue with those roles. And the scariest part is that millennials, the studies are saying that millennials are abdicating even more than the baby boomers.
Yeah, you literally laid me up for what I wanted to talk about next. And that's because it's not that, because I can't speak for all millennials, right? But being a part of the early part of the generation, I see that there are so many more working, high income earning millennial women too, and still have traditional role of controlling the kids' schedule, the this and that at home, the meal planning, all of this stuff, and now are running a super powered career. And they're trying to bring both of those worlds together. And now we want to add the money part on top of it. And I think women are feeling, at least millennial women are feeling like so overwhelmed is what I get from a lot of them.
Yeah.
I don't know how to do all of this. Could there just be a book on how to do everything from managing a household to, and I would argue some of us are in that sandwich generation too, where we're taking care of small children and then we're taking care of our parents and then we're leading powerhouse careers. And of course we just do it. But when we pile on one more thing that maybe we don't see the importance behind because in our upbringing, we didn't have that, right? We didn't have mom running the checkbook, or even there was the image of mom who was like, I bought this, don't tell your dad. Right?
Yeah. My mom did that.
Whereas I'll buy, for those that are watching, I bought this awesome jean jacket because I traded in all of my suit coat jackets now for awesomely cool studded jean jackets. I showed my daughters. I was like, look at what mom just bought. And then I was like, go tell your dad, I just bought the coolest jean jacket ever to reward myself for this, and, you brought up the investment account aspect for your friend's daughter. So I just opened the girls their first investment accounts. I have a 6 and almost 8-year-old. And so we're going to have them find companies that they like, whether it be Disney or Target or, things that they normalize in their lives. And we'll buy one share and they get to watch that company grow or not grow. So that they can have that conversation around what that looks like. Now, of course, I nerd out about that stuff because that's me and that's my profession. But I hope that we can continue to have some of those conversations. How do you see us as a whole, not even individually, but as a society, how can we start to change some of these conversations to empower women even more?
Well, I think again, it's talking about it. I think we have to start talking about it. Women have to start talking about it together. I've had some women say that they're going to buy my book for their book club. Yes. And work through it, right? I mean, that's the kind of thing that we need to start doing. We have to start talking about money comfortably with our friends. And, one of the questions that I got a couple of weeks ago from a group I was presenting to was, how do we get our children engaged? Just similar to what you were just talking about, Shannon. And, one of the things that I said that I'm hoping will encourage them then to get involved is, first and foremost, you have to be a role model. Mm-hmm. Right? Because if you're not a role model, if you're not engaged yourself in the financial conversations, you're giving a very clear picture to your daughters in particular. Mm-hmm. And so I think getting involved, getting engaged, I encourage them, that night, go home and bring up money, some sort of aspect about money at the dinner table. Mm-hmm. Tonight, start it right now. And start to get engaged so that your children see that. And especially, like I said, your daughters, because I think if they aren't seeing their mothers engaged, then, they're not going to feel that they need to get engaged either. And we're just perpetuating the system that's already in place. And we need to change it. I don't know how much more strong. I know you're in agreement with me. I mean, I just don't know how strongly, and I get it. There's this whole divide and conquer, and maybe you need to write the book on I know you don't want to write a book, but I think women are overwhelmed, and I don't blame them a bit. My gosh, I mean, especially this last year, I mean, it has been horrific, and my heart goes out to every working mother, because I truly cannot imagine what working mothers have been through this past year. But and so yeah, I get divide and conquer, but I think this is the one area where you can't push it aside and let somebody else handle it. You really have to
No,
get
you can
involved.
split the grocery list. You can split the
Exactly.
grocery shopping. You
Yeah.
can split the kids' activities.
Yeah.
I had a girlfriend text me the other day about something for school, and I said, that's a task I delegate to Jim,
Good for
my
you.
husband. And she was like, wow. And I was like, well, that's what our partnership looks like, right? Like that is in our household. We have, on my husband and I's first date, I said, if you are not comfortable with me working outside of the home and bossing it up, then this is probably not going to work past date one. So just, I'm going to throw that out there. Obviously, I realize not everybody is Shannon Foreman on the first date, but that was me. And he actually said to me, he was like, well, my mom worked outside of the home and she did it. And I don't have a problem being the stay-at-home dad. And I was like, oh, no. I think you misunderstood what I said.
I mean,
I don't
you
mean
could stay at
stay-at-home
home.
dad. I just mean equal partnership here. So we joke about that all the time. He asks me when he
I
gets to
love
be
it.
a stay-at-home golf dad. But I think you bring up a great point of not leaving something on the table for somebody else to take ownership of.
Yeah.
And you posted this article back earlier this fall on the transition of women out of the workforce due to COVID.
Yeah.
And we have seen so many women move out of the workforce because essentially they were earning less, right? So they had to be the ones that took the stay at home role to take care of kids when kids couldn't go back to school. What do you think that impact is going to be on those financial conversations, or just even strategically on the financial future of women in our history?
Yeah, it scares me, to be perfectly honest. Then that's why I posted that article. So thanks for remembering that, Shannon. It's, and I understand it. Again, my heart goes out to these women who, they just didn't see any other way out. And yet, trying to figure out, if there's a way that you could work part-time, or, somehow keeping a toe in the water, because when you completely step out, it's so incredibly hard to step back in. And I can't remember the numbers now. I had actually, for a group, I had figured out how significant the loss was when you think about, not only are you, missing out on that income, right? Say you give up your $75,000 salary for the next 2 years. So that's 150,000 there. But it also means that you're not contributing to your 401k or your retirement plan. And the loss there is significant when you think about the compounding. And again, the numbers were just astounding when I actually figured it all out, what this truly meant. And it, so it impacts your retirement. It impacts, potentially which college your children can go to. It, when you step back into the workforce, you probably don't start where you left off.
Mm-hmm.
Chances are you start below where you potentially left off. So you may not even be able, if you were making 75,000, you probably don't start back at 75,000. So the implications are just so significant over your lifetime by taking this step out. And I was always a working mom, and there were times that I was really jealous of, the moms that got to stay home and got to be there more for their children. And yet, I needed to work, and I knew that about myself. And so it was the right thing to do. And I know every woman has to make her own choice, but I do think that we've worked so hard to get women to the point we're at. And now it just feels like we're sliding backwards again. And it scares me.
Yeah, I even look at it. I just recently posted about this, and I think maybe wrote about it. I forget how much content I put out there and
I
when
know.
it goes out there. But I was talking about a redesign of the workforce and how women really get the opportunity now because we have more of us entering the workforce, more of us graduating from college. We talked about this at the beginning, but the workforce was, the investment world was designed by men for men. I'd argue that even the workforce was designed by men and
Oh
for
yeah,
men.
absolutely it was. Yeah.
And I remember, and my oldest daughter isn't even 8 yet. And I remember having to advocate to have a space that I was supposed to have to be able to pump my breast milk
Yeah.
while at work.
Yeah.
I also remember being on the road, driving from to and from and pumping in the car and wearing a blanket over me so the semi drivers driving by wouldn't get a free look. But like so we talk about how things have changed and we're still like, are we at the space that we really should be given how much energy and work has been put in? And do we just need, I think 2020 for how the structure of work goes in general, but specifically, I think this will be an interesting way to proceed. How do we design the workforce so that people can have flexibility, so that we can have equal pay, so that we can have these things that don't prohibit people from doing it? It's totally different if you quit because you want to quit and you
Right.
want to stay at
Exactly.
home.
Yeah. Yeah.
Um,
Exactly. I think our industry has definitely shifted as a result of 2020.
yeah.
So I think, I mean, as far as I'm concerned, it feels like this is probably one of the best times ever to enter our industry. And I think our career is such an amazing career field. And I think women are so naturally good at doing what you do, right? I mean,
Yes.
women are, again, I'm being very broadly generic, but women are good listeners, we're good communicators, we care about people, we're interested in truly helping people achieve, their goals, their dreams, and the industry has changed. I mean, in the last 5-10 years, it has become so much more about talking to people about their goals and dreams versus being very transaction oriented.
Mm-hmm.
So I think the industry has finally, for a long time I felt like there was just a lot of lip service around we want women in the industry. I do feel like it's starting to finally shift that we recognize we actually need women in the industry. So, I think there's so many, and I think with everything that happened in the last year, and having to go, have people work from home, it's provided so much more flexibility than women have ever had in this field. So I think there's a lot of industries that are going to be very similar where things are really opening up and really significantly changing as a result of what we've been through this past year. So I'm hopeful from that perspective that women will get, opportunities that I never had. I mean, when I started, I mean, you worked full time and you were at your desk from a certain amount of time to a certain amount of time, and you didn't leave during the day to run your kid to a doctor appointment. And, I mean, we didn't have a room where you could pump your breast. Right. that wasn't even on the table back then. I was usually the only woman in the room. And, so I think from that perspective, I do feel like some of the things that have happened are going to make things change dramatically, and that's good.
Yeah, I think we have started to realize that we don't have to do this 9 to 5 and somebody has to sit at a desk all day long. We actually might be more productive not being there. And like I'm a philosophical, psychological, like that stuff just intrigues me, how our brain makes decisions, especially around money, but specifically too, from an aspect of being creative in creating income sources. I think that we have always thought, for the most part, that everybody has to be 9 to 5. And I think we've kind of transitioned, especially after 2008, into that contract worker type of role. There's good and bad with that, right? Because in the
Right. Yeah.
contractor
Oh yeah,
world, you
definitely.
don't
Yeah.
have benefits and you got to figure out how to save for yourself. but you have a little bit more flexibility. And I think that that's, how do we intertwine those roles? Because the reality is most people don't want to be in the entrepreneurial space like you and I are in.
No.
But they want to have some level of flexibility. I argue that our career is the best career for that, actually. I think that a lot of people think you have to be a slave to the markets, and when the market is open, when the market is closed. And the reality is you don't have to be that. If you focus on financial planning and you focus on the well-being of your clients, it's actually more targeted, I feel like, for a female audience to want to be in that space. But because it's been so driven from that transactional space that you were talking about, that hardcore sales space of, I'm going to complete this stock trade for you, or I'm going to sell this for you, I'm going to sell that for you. And now gearing more into that planning phase, I think we appeal more to that feminine type of thought process.
Yeah.
And yes, there are men that can do it, and they're unicorns in their likelihood. I've ran across a few of them that are unicorns, but it is something that women are very good at. I, however, didn't even know this was a career option until I was told about it.
Yeah. It's like this little hidden secret. And so, I think we have to start telling more women about, the fact that this exists. And, I always tell people, I always felt like I hit the career jackpot because I didn't really know about it either. I mean, I kind of just fell into it. And, I just am so thankful that I did. And it's been an amazing career. And I think it's so fantastic for women to get into it. But yeah, it's not something, and I think we tend to think it's all about math. And I keep telling women, there's really very little math.
Yeah.
Maybe a little bit of addition here and there. One of my classes, one of the women, she was very creative, and she kept telling me, Jayne, my brain doesn't do math. And I was like, it's okay. Don't worry about it. You'll be fine. And as we got through everything, she said, Jayne, she said, actually, it's more data gathering than it is math. And I said, yeah, it actually is. I thought that was a great way to put it. It's like, there is more data gathering than actually, there's not a whole lot of calculus, and, so it's actually not bad.
Yeah, it's very much identifying goals and things that are important to you. And then the numbers part of it is just like, where do you have things, and making sure that you understand where they are and what they're doing for you and what your goals are around it, rather than like calculating somebody's rate of return.
Yeah.
I don't know if people realize this, but we live in a very technologically advanced era that we have the ability to use calculators that calculate all of this stuff for us.
And the computers do a lot for us too.
Yeah, right. Like I told my husband the other day, I'm like, I haven't calculated the future value of money since I had to take my exams.
Exactly. Yeah, standard deviations, I haven't calculated any of that stuff in a long time.
Yeah, absolutely. If you had to identify like 3 places that you would really want women to feel confident in their financial lives, where would that be for you? Like, what would you define that empowerment as, for individuals that you would be working with, or in general?
Well, so my mission statement is empowering women to show up and own their financial journey with courage, confidence, and wisdom. And let me explain the courage, confidence, and wisdom, because I think that's really the key piece for me. So the courage is, the courage to be proactive. It's getting in front of that significant life event that we all know is going to happen. So getting engaged in the financial conversation so that you start to understand the concepts now, versus when all of a sudden you're thrown into a situation where you now need to and have to understand it. So that's the courage. The confidence is the confidence to start having those conversations. So, if it's with your spouse, your partner, your advisor, your planner, whoever it is, starting to engage in those conversations, because those conversations impact your financial future and your family's financial future. So, really getting engaged and starting to participate in those conversations. And then the third is the wisdom. And the wisdom is, if you don't understand your financial situation, you probably also aren't having conversations with your parents, your children, your spouse around finances. And we all need to have those conversations because, as our parents are aging, we're needing to understand their situation and if, are they taken care of? Do they have everything in place? So we're trying to understand their financial situation. Plus we're, as our children graduate from college and we want them to start contributing to their 401k plan or their retirement plan or an IRA, and start to create their own financial wealth. We need to be having those conversations. And if we don't understand it ourselves, we can't have those conversations. So that's the wisdom aspect of it. So that's really the premise behind my business.
I think all of those are so great. And I talk about this quite frequently, and I know you agree. We can employ any strategy we want to, but if we don't get to the heart space of things and we don't really ground ourselves in what our stories were and how we move into a space that makes the most amount of sense for us, we won't move forward.
Yeah.
And I think women are also naturally and inherently caregivers. And you brought up a great point of life transitions, which is like, I could have a whole episode on life transitions, maybe a series on life transitions. But you said it, it will happen.
Yeah.
It will happen.
It will.
How do you see women? What are the things that they should be doing to prepare themselves more for life transitions that will happen? And what, for somebody that's like, what do you mean a life transition? What are some common ones that you've seen that have impacted women the most?
Yeah, I mean, the biggest transitions are losing your spouse. He passes away first. 8 out of 10 women will end up on this journey alone, whether they never marry, they're divorced, or they're widowed. So definitely losing your spouse or getting a divorce. Those are certainly two of the life transitions that happen often. Half of marriages end in divorce. The average, this is always the one that people are always amazed by. And I guess I was surprised by it too, but now I've been saying it for so long, I've forgotten that I was surprised by it. But the average age of widowhood in the United States is 59. And, I think people are really surprised by that because, it seems like we're living longer and longer, and yet not everybody is, right? I mean, we still have things happen. And, so I think, keeping all of that in mind, but, good things, there's good transitions too, right? I mean, maybe you want to make a career change. And in order to make that career change, you really need to understand your finances and what it is you need out of that next stage that you want to move into, whatever that looks like. So, career transition, you might inherit wealth. I mean, a lot of the baby boomers are passing down a lot of money. So it could be, I had one woman go through my course that, her mother had left her money and she wanted to be a good steward of it. She watched her mother painstakingly save this money. Yep. And so she wanted to be a good steward. And so I think, there's all different reasons why we're going to at some point need to understand money, but for most of us, it will happen. There will come a point. And so, again, I think the biggest thing is starting to learn the basics. I think we reach a point in our lives where, and you were talking about it earlier with a wealthy woman, she thinks, well, now I've accumulated wealth and I've been sitting in all these meetings. And now I'm really embarrassed to say to my advisor, I really don't even understand the difference between a stock and a bond, even though you've been talking about that for the last 20 years and I've been coming to these meetings. They don't want to admit that. And so, what I provide is a really safe space for them to come and say, yeah, I don't get it. Because nobody's ever taught me. And so why would I be expected to understand this when there was no point anywhere where somebody took the time to teach me the basics? And, I know I would at times, I would try to teach women as I was working with them. But when you see them once every 6 months or once a year, you can't get enough of that education in. And so actually making the commitment, to, and I've got different resources, different books and podcasts, and I know you do as well, that you can recommend to people. But I think you have to take that first step and just realize that this is something that you're going to need to understand.
Yeah, it is inevitable that, like, I mean, the one constant that we have in life is change. And if you did not understand that in 2020, please tell me the rock that you are living under, and we will help lift it up for you. But it is so true. And I would argue that many of these transitions don't just happen at once, right? Because life has the tendency to just have everything happen at once. Yeah. For us. And we all have stories of those things happening more, things that happen more than once. I walked through a client who's lost 3 individuals very close in their lives. I walked through another client who lost her spouse, who moved with her spouse, lost her spouse. And then, everything with COVID happened. And it's just an element of transition after transition after transition that we will experience. And if we build that solid foundation, as I talk about, which is knowledge, but is also empowerment and understanding that we're worth it. So I always remind everyone too, no matter where you are on your wealth journey, which is why I use wealth instead of money, so that we start to correlate. Wealth is something that is built. It is not, money is something that comes and goes. We spend it, right? But wealth stays. And so how do we understand that we're worthy of that? So I'm so thankful for your knowledge, Jayne. The book releases on April 8th. Where can people find it? Where can people hang out with you? Are you doing any of these more small groups, even though we're still in a virtual environment? How can people connect with you?
Oh, thanks, Shannon. Yeah, no, absolutely. So the book is available right now on my website. So I just got them. So I've been shipping them out this week. So I'm so excited. Here, I have to show you.
Yeah. Please do. Yay. So I have the PDF version. I don't have the hard copy yet. So I got to order my hard copy.
It's a beautiful book. And yeah, so I encourage, and again, I priced it so that, it's very affordable. I want as many women as possible to actually own it and read it and go through the pillars. But yeah, so that is available on my website. It will eventually be available on Amazon as well, and an ebook version also. So you can get at it different ways. I will be hoping to offer another 6-week challenge, either starting in May or June. And so I have an online course that's always available. And then I've taken the online course, the 6-week challenge utilizes the online course. You get the videos and the handouts and all the things that come with the online course. But then we also do weekly Zoom sessions together. So that's kind of the mix of the online and in person. It's not in person, but we at least get some of that magic of
live action
together. Yeah. So you get to share your stories and ask your questions, not just do it by yourself. And then I'm hoping in the fall that I'll be able to offer an in-person again, which is absolutely my favorite thing, and I think is just so fun. So
wonderful.
Those are the different things that are available. And then I'm doing a lot of speaking engagements, and so on my website it lists any speaking engagements I have coming up, and so some are private, some aren't. So I put links when they are public events that others can join. So take a look.
Wonderful.
There as well.
And I would also say you produce like really great content as well. And you have a group on Facebook that you share individuals and have individuals come on and share as well. So Jayne, thank you immensely. We will share all of the links so people can purchase the book and join the 6-week course or take the course themselves independently of you. Any last words of wisdom that you would love to leave our audience with?
No, thank you for having me, Shannon. This has been so fantastic. And again, any way that you can learn, whatever way that is for you, whether it's, it's a book, it's a podcast, it's a course, it's, doing it together, whatever it is, find a way to, make it engaging, because it is the best way that you can grow your wealth. And, as you've said, Shannon, I mean, it really is. And so, taking that under your wing and really getting started is just one of the nicest gifts you can give yourself.
Couldn't have said it better. Thank you so much, Jayne.